Stick around to the end of this video to find out how the hero's journey led to what ElfQuest fans still call the IOS, the infamous orgy scene. When I was growing up, I only read superhero comics, the kind published by Marvel and DC Comics. At the time, no other genre needed apply. Then, in the summer of my 11th year, my family took a road trip to Indiana to visit some family, and as they would often do, my parents gave me a few dollars and told me to pick out some comic books to occupy my time on the drive. I'm not sure what motivated me at the time, but when I was picking out comics for that drive, I picked up this, ElfQuest Issue 2, a decidedly non-superhero comic. ElfQuest was a fantasy comic. There were no capes. There were no men in muscular costumes. Like I said, I'm still not sure what motivated me to pick the book up. Maybe it's the fact that at the time it was being published by Marvel Comics, and that familiar logo was all I needed to give it a go. That comic would change the course of my collecting. No longer restrained to just superhero comics, I found my horizons broaden to include things like the work of Paul Pope and Sin City and multiple warheads and Madmen, all the different varieties and genres of comics that I had never taken a chance on before. And even though I didn't know it at the time, that comic provided a perfect example of the sixth stage of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, called the Road of Trials. When the Road of Trials appears in a movie, it often appears as a training montage. The Road of Trials is when the hero starts to get fit. They burn away the excess of their past life and adapt to a whole new way of living. Being introduced to ElfQuest in issue 2 means that I missed an entire episode of setup, but that's okay, it was easy to catch up. So in issue 1, we're introduced to the Wolf Riders. They're a clan of elves who have wolves that they ride around on. The elves shared the forest with a clan of humans, and a conflict arises between the humans and the elves. This conflict results in the humans burning down the elves' holt, their home. The Wolf Riders flee for their lives, taking shelter in the underground caverns of a group of trolls. The Wolf Riders' relationship with the trolls was only slightly better than their relationship with the humans, so this is a temporary escape. Not wanting to be bothered with the elves for long, the trolls tell the Wolf Riders about an Eden-like forest that exists on the very edge of their caverns, and they offer to show it to them. The trolls were lying. The trolls didn't lead them to a beautiful wooded area. Instead, they led them to a barren desert, and then they caused an avalanche that trapped the elves in the desert. With no food and no shelter, the elves were forced to cross the barren desert. Having spent their lives under the leafy protection of their forest home, the elves found themselves unprepared for their new climate. The elves found themselves unprepared for the blazing sun, the dry air, and the sandy terrain. But the Wolf Riders' chief, an elf named Cutter, wouldn't let that stop him, so he led the elves through this desert. As time passed, the elves found ways to survive this new environment, and then eventually found protection in the form of a village full of strange desert elves. The Wolf Riders were creatures of the forest, but their time on the Road of Trials burned away their preferences for forest living and made them creatures capable of surviving in the desert. The same way that the Road to Indiana burned away my preference for superhero comics and made me a collector that could appreciate all kinds of genres. You never know where the Road of Trials is going to lead you. Oh, and the thing about the orgy, once the Wolf Riders encountered this desert tribe of elves, they were soon led to an Arctic tribe of elves. And when you get 3 groups of elves together, apparently what happens next can get pretty R-rated.